Can DeFi banks restructure the financial world? From mortgage to bank loans, how will the future look?
Thank you guys for accepting our invite to speak about such an interesting subject about DeFi banks and the financial world. I think it's one of the hottest topics within the industry in the last, let's say, since this year. COVID has affected us in a lot of ways, in weird ways, and DeFi is probably affecting the crypto industry within the same strength as well. I will start by asking all of you to introduce yourselves to the people who might not be from the industry, although you guys certainly do not need an introduction. Start with you, Tone.
Hi everyone, my name is Tone Vays. I've been a part of the crypto space since around late 2013, early 2014, come from the traditional Wall Street environment, got really interested in Bitcoin and kind of went down that path. Today I run a YouTube channel. I have several conferences around the world. One is in Las Vegas called Unconfiscatable. Another one is in Malta called Understanding Bitcoin. And also, I educate people on trading because that was one of my former skill sets as well as speak at many conferences, try to educate people about crypto, Bitcoin, and the freedom that it can bring.
Perfect. I'm also a previous trader for almost 17 years, so we have some stuff in common there. Felix?
Hi everyone, thanks for having me again, and thanks for making that happen even virtually this year. It's amazing what you pull off here. My name is Felix Mago. I'm working for the decentralized project Dash, or have run one of many organizations or entities within Dash Digital Cash. We are one of the rather old and first generation projects out there. Dash stands for digital cash, so we are very focused on payments around the world, getting merchant systems up and running, getting users to use cryptocurrency for other use cases than only trading. But then, as you already said, DeFi came along, and this is a very, very interesting use case, especially as we always claim, be your own bank. So there's a lot of stuff we can do now, I think, with many blockchains working together, and I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you, Felix. Stefan, last but not least.
Yes, hi there, and thank you for having me. So my background, I've been kind of working in the internet business since the late 90s and kind of seen the various waves of the internet. And the last kind of 10 plus years, industry specific, I've been focusing on sort of gaming and gambling. And the last 3 years, I've been working with and the CEO for a decentralized application called Funfair Technologies, which is a decentralized gaming platform built on the Ethereum blockchain. And during that period, although I had an interest in blockchain and crypto prior to that, I've obviously kind of learned a lot at the coalface of actually running a dApp on Ethereum. And most recently, we had been looking at kind of DeFi and obviously the rise of DeFi on Ethereum and where DeFi and gaming could overlap. And subsequently to that, I've kind of moved on and I'm now a consultant in the space from a kind of business perspective.
Okay, thanks a lot for the introduction, guys. So DeFi is the space we're talking about here, but when we provide a background about the decentralized finance, different people who are in different industries could have a different understanding or could put more emphasis on what decentralized finance will address with regards to issues in the sector. So I would like each one of you to express what DeFi is to themselves, so just the general understanding of decentralized finance and what it stands for, and especially from your own perspective in the industry you operate, which you guys seem to all hail from different backgrounds. Starting with you, Tone.
Sure. I was kind of hoping I'd go last, but I guess I'll kick it off. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to agree with the other two panelists. Here's what DeFi means to me. To me, DeFi, and it should mean to everyone, stands for decentralized finance. However, in the entire crypto space, in the entire financial world, I believe there's only one and only one project. You can call it a blockchain project, you can call it whatever you like, there's only one project in all of crypto that is actually decentralized, and that is Bitcoin. I don't believe there is another project in all of crypto that can have a claim that it's decentralized. I have actually written articles about this myself, along with several other experts in the field. And therefore, this notion of calling a lot of these projects DeFi, I believe, is just wrong. Are they doing things that are differently? Of course they are. They're doing them differently. Are they being innovative? And my answer is, once again, no, it's not. I haven't seen anything in the world of DeFi other than Bitcoin that is actually innovative. It is taking the same exact thing that has always been done. And I believe that it makes it a little more dangerous. And we're seeing some elements of that, but not fully, in that this time around, unlike the traditional finance, this time around, everyone is actually printing their own money for these DeFi projects. So I have been a vocal voice to try and get people to think about a lot of these projects more critically and not just rush into it, because I've seen way too many examples of people losing a lot of money. Sure, there's money to be made if you really understand the inner workings of them, and the further you dig into those inner workings, the shadier a lot of those projects are to me. So I've been a voice against a lot of this DeFi stuff in the world of crypto.
Normally I would pass straight on to the next participant, but just to put it out there for later down the line, I would probably consider you one of the purists then, but there's going to be always a stepping stone from totally decentralized to hand-holding, where some parts are decentralized, but then they will end up being decentralized, which is a problem that we're going to find with the industry and industries that are usually also quite regulated, which is especially like the finance world that we operate in as well. Felix, your idea of decentralized finance?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. And it's really complicated, because you can approach it from so many different perspectives. First of all, and really personally, I have to say, since I dig into what is happening there, I feel like, the first time I heard about Bitcoin, you fall into this rabbit hole and open so many doors, and I have exactly the same feeling. And honestly, I didn't have it for a long time in blockchain. So now 2020 has really, made me like an addict. I cannot get enough of all that DeFi stuff. And this is like super, super exciting. The second thing is, in the last couple of years, a lot of things have happened in blockchain space. And finally, we have many products that are working and that we can play around with. So, to say it very simply, now you can do stuff that you couldn't do before. As Tone pointed out very accurately, a big use case or a big thing what's happening right now is that you just copy paste exactly the world of financial products out there. But, to put it in another perspective, the banking industry and finance industry is like one of the most creative industries in creating the weirdest products and selling that as a financial product all around the world to different customers, right? So obviously that's a use case, if this is good always, or I would argue there's always some, nice use cases in it and some great business models for people, to invest in, and that it's an alternative. And from the standpoint of, now we have all that stuff in place, we can do things with it. Obviously, there is a lot of use cases we didn't see yet. And you can really imagine it as a Lego box on the one side, where now we can plug and play so many things together. And again, with Dash now, there is a lot of stuff that you can do beyond payment, such as lending, borrowing, and you kind of can integrate it into existing systems. And if you take it a bit from a perspective where, so far many blockchains have these own islands and have no bridges to play with each other or to interact with each other, and there's all these amazing ecosystems going around, and I feel DeFi gives us the opportunity to build bridges all around these blockchains and to create just something new. And I'm not sure if I can even what has happened last month. I don't know what's happening next month. It's so fast. Probably next year when we sit here, we have a completely different perspective.
That is a very good point, and we will explore interoperability and also atomic swaps later during this call as well. Thank you, Felix. What is your point of view, Stefan? Your view onto the DeFi world?
I think it's interesting hearing the other two's point of view, and I share quite a lot of what they say. And I think for me, what's interesting, and it is a very fast moving space. and a lot has happened, but I still think it's very, very early doors. Whereas crypto kind of had the promise of facilitating universal payment, I think what DeFi or open finance does is, through decentralization and through the use of smart contracts and protocols, has the ability or the promise or the potential to open up financial products to a much wider group of people in a very different way than traditional finance. So in that sense, I think, you could argue the potential for it is, to open up finance and financial tools. And at the moment, they're largely being borrowed from the traditional financial world. But I have no doubt, as innovation moves forward, there will be new innovative financial tools and services that are enabled by this technology to anybody on the planet, really, who has a mobile phone and the internet. The decentralization point that Tone makes, I hear, and I think that's probably largely true. In what you hear, from the projects, is they're on a journey to decentralization. And then I also think Felix raised the point around, there is some quite significant legal and compliance concerns around this in terms of its openness and KYC and AML, which I'm sure we'll touch upon.
Very valid points, all of you. And obviously, by the time we get to where decentralized finance needs to be, it's going to be a long journey, a journey probably filled with mistakes as well that we have to correct. But in order to simplify as much as possible the understanding, I want to each one of you to touch upon some current developments. You can speak about your companies as well, or stuff that you guys are working on that are actually happening right now. And the idea is to identify current developments and see what missing links these developments have within the DeFi space. I think addressing the shortcomings and the challenges is a very good way for our listeners to understand where the current situation now, and then after we will see where the industry is going. Tone, you can start.
Sure. I guess I'll start with the developments that I really care about, and that is the developments of Bitcoin. A lot of people do think that it moves very slow, and transactions might be expensive, and transactions might not be very private. But here's what Bitcoin is doing. By actually being decentralized, Bitcoin provides 3 properties that didn't exist before Bitcoin and haven't existed since Bitcoin. They are unconfiscatability, which means you can now hold something of value in your head and no one knows it even exists, and you can take that anywhere with you, and no one can confiscate it from you unless they hack it. But if they don't know you even have it, makes it a lot harder to hack. Censorship-resistant value transfer. Yes, it's not always fast. Yes, it's not always cheap. Yes, it's not always private, but there is no middleman in that transaction. That transaction will not be reversed. At least it hasn't yet, and hopefully that will never happen, because if a Bitcoin transaction is reversed, the entire confidence, not only in Bitcoin, but in every single project in the crypto space, basically dies. If it's proven that Bitcoin is not immutable, I will never hold any Bitcoin for longer than it takes me to make a transaction. I would basically, I'll still use Bitcoin. I would still love the censorship-resistant value transfer property, but I will never ever use it as a store of value. I would basically treat Bitcoin like the Venezuelan Bolivar. The moment I get some, I need to immediately spend it, because I don't know what's going to happen to it 5 minutes later. That would basically be how I treat it. It's still useful, but not as useful. And the third property is its finite supply of 21 million Bitcoin. Once again, if that property is to be challenged and that property is to be changed, basically the confidence of a finite supply of Bitcoin is gone. And that's how I see all these other cryptocurrencies. All these other cryptocurrencies is just unsecure, non-decentralized inflation on top of Bitcoin's 21 million coins. And the developments to make Bitcoin faster, cheaper, more private are happening. They may not be happening as quickly for some, but they are happening because it's too important not to screw this up. The traditional statement of Silicon Valley and startups move fast and break things is great when you're building a messaging app. It's not so great when we're talking about people's life savings. So it's a very, very different environment. Now, when it comes to a lot of these DeFi projects, they still have this mentality of move fast and break things. And when it comes to breaking people's money and their savings, I'm not very happy with these developments. We have seen numerous hacks, numerous levels of incompetence in a lot of these DeFi projects. So I'm not expecting much from it. Yes, a lot of them are hyped. Yes, a lot of them go up in value. But just as we saw with the ICOs of 2017 and 98% of altcoins in 2014-15, they're not coming back. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 1 or 2 or even 10 of these projects may one day succeed. And I may be wrong because I don't think any will. But even if I'm wrong on that part, where I am not wrong is knowing that I am not smart enough to know which 3 to 5 projects would succeed out of the 3,000 to 5,000 projects we have. So I just want to warn people that Bitcoin has proven itself, and that is the true decentralized finance, because you can now be a bank and control your own money going forward, and don't throw it away on some better percentage gain because someone convinced you that this DeFi project is the future.
Those are very, very strong statements, and I agree with most of what you said. And it is beyond this panel, but obviously I assume you would be an interesting person to invite for central bank digital currencies to speak pro, or mostly I would guess against. Felix, your idea of what's happening in this space?
Yeah, thank you, Ton. I would say I agree with many of them. Just I would like to take a little bit of just a different perspective to point out some other things. I mean, especially with Dash, I said we have established merchant ecosystems all around the world in the last year. So in fact, there is already a lot of stuff that is there, that is working, where people can spend their money. In fact, me in Thailand, I personally try to live as much from Dash as I can, and there's a nice ecosystem here with many awesome restaurants and cool places I can go, and I like to hang out. So this is for me, like from a very user personal perspective, already one very big achievement in the last years. Then we have Dash platform coming out this year, so finally there will be a second layer essentially on Dash. We can build things. We have a decentralized cloud storage, we have decentralized APIs, we have usernames, and that's all about to launch in the next month. And then I was super happy that suddenly DeFi happened, and essentially for me, who is building partnerships, who is trying always to find strategic new business angles, exactly to do, what Tony said, you have to be relevant and you have to run a useful business case at the end of the day that people use and that people like, and that's absolutely true. So for me, the DeFi space has opened doors to 1 million new possible partnerships. And I think bringing these 3 things now together, number one, the established merchant ecosystem we have, together with now the possibility to build really cool stuff on Dash, such as, payroll solutions or whatever is necessary for a decentralized payment. And number 3, combining that with existing projects out there with lending platform, staking, or, there's also probably good ways to build yield maximizers and all that, what is happening out there. So to bring that all together, I think that's a huge chance and a huge opportunity, especially for older projects like us to remain relevant and to make it up to the top again.
Mm-hmm. It is very interesting that Tony went on the purist approach, and you were talking a bit more on doing decentralized elements to some non-decentralized elements of finance as well. Stefan, just to put some perspective, we are a bit limited from time. What is your idea of what's happening currently in the market?
So I think what's happening specifically around the DeFi space, which is predominantly on Ethereum. I probably take a slightly different view to Tone in that I think Ethereum is pretty decentralized, and that's its raison d'etre. I think what Ethereum brings to the party is obviously smart contracts, And what DeFi is doing is utilizing those smart contracts by creating financial protocols. And those protocols enable, and I think this is innovative. I think it certainly has teething issues at this point, but I think it is innovative in that what you're doing is you're cutting out a financial middleman or an institution, and you are directly interfacing and working with a protocol. And that protocol could be in lending, it could be in an exchange, Uniswap, it could be a number of financial instruments that, at the moment, I call it kind of a bubble because it is a relatively small group of people. It certainly hasn't broken out into a bigger, more mass market audience, and I don't think it will do for quite some time. But we're in a kind of sandbox of experimentation within which this new kind of paradigm or potential paradigm in terms of financial services and applications are being experimented with. So I personally think it's a very interesting time. I think it is very early days. I think history will tell you that the vast majority of the projects will fail, as per Tone's point, as we've seen with other technology waves in the past. But there likely will be some winners in there as well, as we see the space kind of evolve over the coming years.
I cannot agree with you more because we have seen this over and over again. There's always the hype, but then there's only a few that really provide the value which is needed to thrive in the industry. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I would really like to get 15 to 20-second comment from each and one of you about what the future holds for the DeFi space. Start with you, Tone.
Sure. I do think that Bitcoin has a very, very bright future as it continues to give people a decentralized means to have a store of value and be their own bank. I also believe that a lot of these DeFi projects, they're going to be just as centralized as our current financial system. I just don't see how they can stay decentralized because they still require contact in the outside world. They require somebody to enforce these contracts, and it goes beyond simply code. So I think it's going to devolve to the current financial system, but you can now use Bitcoin, which is a decentralized form of value transfer.
Perfect. Felix?
I think most of all, we cannot predict what is happening in 2 months in DeFi. This is number one. I hope we close the gap soon between a big hype out there and too many buzzwords out there and real usage on it. So we have to bring in more users. We have to make it more accessible. And honestly, stuff has to work better because it's still so clumsy to use it.
I cannot agree with you more being in a regulated space. Stefan?
Yes, I totally agree with the user experience piece. The user experience needs to significantly move forward. I know there's a lot of work going on, but it's still a minefield, and that needs to move forward at a pace. I think this piece around decentralization. There's quite a lot of DeFi projects at the moment exploring governance tokens, and I think that is still, there's a long way to go on that. So I think that is a very interesting space to watch as that evolves. And then I think the third kind of key area is really around regulation and how regulators are going to perceive DeFi. We've seen action now from a ICO perspective. I suspect we will see considerable interest and action from regulators when it comes to DeFi. But at the same time, I hope that the regulators are open-minded to this being a new technology and having the potential to be hugely innovative and looking at it in a sensible and kind of mature way.
I couldn't agree more. And from my experience in the regulated space, you cannot self-regulate. You always have to give regulator a say in the way you program things, in the way there can be checks and balances. But it is very early right now to determine exactly where the industry is going, which is probably why this panel and this sector right now is so interesting, because everyone is putting a lot of money, a lot of pressure in it to obviously take the biscuit, as we say. But probably in 2021 or maybe the year after, we will see who the emerging winners are going to be. I thank you guys for being on the panel. Unfortunately, I wanted it to get a bit more spicy or ask a few more things, but they're telling us to stop. I thank you, Tone. Thank you, Felix. Thank you, Stefan. And hopefully we can resume this in another time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys.